She was just a delivery driver trying to survive. He was the city's most feared mafia boss. When she knocked on his door at midnight carrying baby formula and her 3-year-old twins, she had no idea she was about to destroy both their carefully controlled lives. Because the moment Milton James saw her son's distinctive silver blue eyes, a genetic trait that only appeared in his bloodline, he knew. And when the boy hummed a lullaby only the James family sang, passed down through generations, never recorded, never shared, the truth hit Milton harder than any bullet he'd ever taken. These weren't just random children. They were his children. And in the mafia world, family is the deadliest secret you can have. Before we dive into this explosive story of hidden bloodlines, deadly secrets, and a family formed through chaos, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This tale has more twists than a mountain road, more action than a summer blockbuster, and a revelation that will change everything you think you know about mafia bosses and single mothers. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens when a simple delivery becomes the most dangerous transaction of two people's lives. Now, let me introduce you to the players in this deadly game. Barbara Long's phone lit up at 11:47 p.m. with a notification that made her exhausted brain struggle to process. Premium delivery order, baby formula, $200 payout. Thornhill Heights District. Accept delivery. She sat at a red light in her ancient delivery van, a 2004 Dodge that made concerning noises suggesting imminent mechanical failure, and stared at the offer through vision blurred by exhaustion. $200 for delivering baby formula. Nearly 4 times the normal rate for such a delivery. To Thornhill Heights, the neighborhood where houses had names instead of numbers, and cars cost more than most people's annual income. In the back seat, visible through her rearview mirror, Lily and Lucas slept in car seats she'd padded with every blanket she owned. The van's heater died in September. It was November now. Barbara's breath formed clouds in the frigid interior, and she could see her twins' small forms bundled against the cold that she couldn't afford to fix. 3 years old. They deserved better than sleeping in a van while Mama worked 3 delivery jobs just to keep them barely fed and minimally housed. Barbara pulled up her banking app with fingers that trembled from cold and hunger. Current balance, $63.47. Rent was due Friday, $850. Lucas needed new shoes. His current pair had holes worn completely through the soles, and she'd been putting cardboard inserts inside to extend their life another week, another day, just a little longer, until she could afford the $30 for new ones. Lily's asthma inhaler prescription needed refilling, $85, even with the discount card from the free clinic. And Barbara herself hadn't eaten anything except instant ramen and condiment packets stolen from fast food restaurants in 4 days. Her stomach had stopped growling yesterday, progressed past pain into numb acceptance. $200 would mean groceries for a week, heat in the van, medicine for Lily, shoes for Lucas, maybe, impossibly, hopefully, a few dollars left over to put toward the electricity bill that was 2 weeks overdue. When you're drowning and someone throws you a rope, do you question why it's there? Or do you grab it and hope? Every instinct Barbara had developed over 3 years of grinding poverty screamed that this was wrong. Nobody paid $200 for formula delivery at midnight. Nobody legitimate, anyway. This reeked of something dangerous, something she should run from. But desperation was so much louder than instinct. Barbara hit accept delivery before she could talk herself out of it. The pickup location was a 24-hour pharmacy in her current neighborhood, the kind of place with bulletproof glass and security guards, where prescriptions came with side-eye judgment about whether you could actually afford them. Barbara grabbed the sealed bag containing 6 containers of premium organic baby formula, signed for the pickup, and entered the delivery address into her GPS. 17 Ravenwood Lane, Thornhill Heights, 23 minutes away, according to the GPS. Through 3 different neighborhoods that represented 3 different worlds. From the area where Barbara struggled to survive, through the working-class district where people had jobs with benefits and houses with mortgages, finally into Thornhill Heights, where the wealthy lived behind walls and gates. She drove through the dark city, checking on the twins every few minutes. Still sleeping, thank God. They'd learned to sleep through anything. Police sirens, gunshots, the constant rumble of their deteriorating van. Resilient, her babies. Too resilient. Children shouldn't have to be this tough. The GPS led her off the main roads into residential streets that got progressively wider, houses progressively larger, until she was driving through what felt more like a park than a neighborhood. Streetlights were elegant lampposts that cast warm light across manicured lawns, and landscaping that probably cost more monthly than Barbara paid for rent. Her van, sputtering, smoking slightly from an oil leak she couldn't afford to fix, sounded obscenely loud in this quiet, expensive world. You have arrived at your destination. Barbara's foot hit the brake instinctively, her eyes widening. The house at 17 Ravenwood Lane looked more like a fortress. 20-foot walls topped with security cameras, gates that belonged on a military installation, the kind of property that screamed serious money and serious privacy. Beyond the walls, she could see a modern mansion, all glass and stone and architectural drama, lit like a monument, despite the midnight hour. This was not a normal house where normal people needed formula delivered. Barbara's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She could leave, just drive away, take the hit to her delivery rating and the lost income, choose safety over money. But then Lucas made a small sound in his sleep, that particular whimper that meant his shoes were too tight. His feet hurt. He needed new shoes she couldn't afford. $200. Barbara pulled up to the intercom beside the gates and pressed the call button. A few seconds of silence, then, "Yes?" Male voice, cultured, no identifiable accent. "Delivery for Milton James. Baby formula." More silence. Long enough that Barbara wondered if this was some kind of prank, if she'd driven across the city for nothing. Then the gates began to open. Silent, smooth, expensive machinery that moved walls of metal like they weighed nothing. Barbara drove through, her heartbeat loud in her ears, every instinct still screaming that she should run. The mansion's front entrance was carved from stone, with steps leading to massive doors that probably cost more than most cars. Landscape lighting illuminated the approach like a runway. Security cameras, Barbara counted at least 6 visible ones, tracked her van's progress. A man stood waiting at the top of the steps. He was tall, Barbara estimated 6'2", with dark hair styled precisely despite the late hour. He wore expensive clothes with the casual elegance of someone who didn't have to think about what things cost. Dark slacks, a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up revealing forearms marked with several prominent scars. But it was his face that caught Barbara's attention. Handsome in a dangerous way. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes that assessed her in the fraction of a second it took to blink. There was something predatory in his stillness, something that suggested violence held in careful check. Those eyes were distinctive, silver blue. Not gray, not blue, but something in between. Unusual, almost unnatural in their striking intensity. Barbara grabbed the formula bag and climbed out of the van, hyper-aware of how she must look. Exhausted, wearing clothes she'd been living in for 2 days, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, desperation probably visible in every line of her body. "Formula delivery," she said, walking quickly up the steps and extending the bag. "That'll be— Mama!" Time fractured into slow motion. Barbara's head whipped around to see Lucas, her beautiful, fearless, completely oblivious 3-year-old son, tumbling out of the van's sliding door. She'd forgotten. God help her, she'd been so tired, so focused on getting the delivery done, that she'd forgotten to engage the child's safety lock on his car seat. Lucas hit the driveway pavement on hands and knees, scraping his palms but not crying. He was tough, her boy, used to little injuries, then scrambled to his feet and started running toward the mansion steps with the enthusiastic, chaotic speed of a toddler who thought everything was an adventure. "Lucas, no!" Barbara dropped the formula bag and lunged down the steps, but Lucas was already at the top, already standing directly in front of the dangerous stranger, looking up with wide, curious, absolutely fearless eyes. Eyes that were silver blue, distinctive, rare, the exact same unusual color as the man's eyes. Milton James. Because this had to be Milton James, the address was his, the house was his, went absolutely, completely still. His face, previously neutral with the practiced control of someone used to hiding every emotion, transformed through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, something that looked like being struck by lightning while standing perfectly still. He stared at Lucas, specifically at Lucas's eyes, for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 5 seconds. "I'm so sorry," Barbara gasped, reaching for her son. "He got out of his seat. He's not supposed to. We'll just go." "Wait!" Milton's voice stopped her like a physical barrier, still quiet, but carrying absolute command. "Don't move!" Barbara froze, Lucas in her arms, every maternal instinct screaming danger. Milton crouched down slowly, bringing himself to eye level with Lucas, studying the boy's face with an intensity that made Barbara's stomach clench with fear. "What's your name?" Milton asked, his voice gentle in a way that seemed completely at odds with everything about him. "Lucas," her son replied with typical toddler openness, not understanding that some strangers weren't safe. "I'm 3. This is Mama." "Hi, Lucas. I'm Milton." Those silver blue eyes, so similar to her son's that it was impossible not to notice, moved from the boy to Barbara with laser focus. "How old is he?" 3 years, 2 months, Barbara answered automatically, already backing toward the steps. "And his father?" The question hit like a punch to the chest. "Not in the picture. Listen, I'm sorry for the disruption." "His eyes," Milton interrupted, straightening to his full height, which was considerably taller than Barbara's 5'6". "That color, it's very distinctive." "It's just eyes. Genetic variation. I really need to go." "That specific shade of silver blue appears in about 1 in 10 million people," Milton continued, his voice taking on an edge Barbara couldn't quite identify. Was it anger? Suspicion? Something else? "In this city, it appears in exactly 1 bloodline, 1 family, mine." Barbara's heart stopped. "So I'll ask again," Milton said, moving down the steps toward her with predatory grace. "Who is his father?" "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie sounded weak, even to Barbara's ears. "We're leaving." Lucas chose that moment to start humming. The sound was soft, absent-minded, his usual pre-sleep melody, The tune he hummed when he was getting comfortable, when he felt safe and content. A lullaby Barbara had taught him when he was a baby, soothing him through colic and teething pain and the thousand small terrors of early childhood. A melody Barbara had learned 4 years ago in Prague. Milton went absolutely white. "Where?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper now, each word carrying the weight of continents shifting. Where did he learn that song? "I taught him," Barbara said, her own voice shaking because she suddenly understood, with horrible, crystal-clear certainty, that her carefully maintained secret was about to detonate. "That's the Moretti James lullaby," Milton said, still in that dangerously quiet voice, "passed down orally through my family for 5 generations. Never recorded, never written down, never shared outside the bloodline. There are exactly 14 people alive who know that melody. 14. And now, apparently, 15. Because somehow your son," his eyes bored into hers, "your son with my family's eyes is humming my family's lullaby. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Who is his father?" Barbara could feel the entire situation collapsing. 3 years of carefully constructed invisibility, of choosing poverty over exposure, of hiding her children's identity to protect them from exactly this moment. All destroyed by silver blue eyes and a lullaby she'd thought was just a pretty tune, not a genetic marker as distinctive as DNA. "Prague," Milton said suddenly, recognition blooming across his face. 4 years ago. "The clinic on Masarikovo Street. You called yourself Anna Garcia. Brown hair instead of blonde, but the face is the same. You kept me alive when I was recovering from a gunshot wound, when my own people couldn't reach me, when I was stranded in a foreign city bleeding out from a botched treaty negotiation." Barbara couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only watch as Milton connected every dot she'd spent 3 years keeping separate. 7 days, Milton continued, his voice growing stronger as memories clearly flooded back. "You kept me hidden in that clinic for 7 days. Treated the wound, prevented infection, brought me food, told me stories about your work as a nurse. We talked about everything, books, philosophy, the fundamental loneliness of modern life." His jaw clenched. "The night before I left, He stopped, looking from Barbara to Lucas and back again. 9 months, Milton said flatly. It would have been 9 months from Prague to his birth. "Please," Barbara whispered, clutching Lucas tighter. "Please just let us go. Forget you saw us. I'll disappear again." "You can't disappear from this," Milton's voice carried absolute certainty. "Do you understand what you've been hiding? Do you understand what those eyes mean? Every enemy I have, every rival family, every person who wants to destroy me will see those eyes and know exactly what they represent. They'll know I have a son, an heir, a vulnerability, which is exactly why I hid him." Barbara's voice rose despite her fear. "Why I chose poverty over letting you anywhere near them, because I knew what world you lived in, what danger you'd bring." "Them?" Milton's eyes widened fractionally. "There's more than one?" And Barbara realized, with sinking horror, that she'd just exposed Lily, too. In the van, as if on cue, Lily began crying. That particular wail that meant she'd woken in an unfamiliar place without Mama immediately visible. The sound of a 3-year-old in distress. "Stay here," Milton commanded, then moved past Barbara toward the van with purpose. "Don't you touch my daughter!" Barbara ran after him, but Milton was already at the van's sliding door, opening it gently, looking inside at Lily with an expression Barbara couldn't read. Lily's eyes, dark brown like Barbara's, not silver blue like her brother's, were wide with fear. "Mama? I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Barbara pushed past Milton and gathered Lily into her arms, both twins now clinging to her, both sensing Mama's fear and responding with their own. Milton stood in the driveway, staring at the three of them with something like devastation written across his face. "Twins," he said quietly. "You had twins, my children, and you never told me. I never told you because you were dangerous." Barbara's exhaustion and fear finally exploded into anger. "I Googled you after you left Prague. Do you know what I found? Articles about Milton James, the criminal boss, the territory wars, the violence, the bodies. I found out who you really were, and I looked at my positive pregnancy test, and I chose," her voice broke, "I chose to keep them away from all of that, to give them poverty instead of danger, safety instead of your world." "And how did that work out?" Milton's voice was sharp. "You're delivering formula at midnight with your children sleeping in a van with no heat. You look like you haven't eaten in days. You're one emergency away from homelessness. That's the safety you chose? When does the moral high ground of your choices collapse under the weight of their consequences?" "At least they're alive," Barbara shot back. "At least nobody's trying to kidnap them, or use them as leverage, or hurt them to get to you." "Nobody was trying. Past tense." Milton pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. "But they will be. The moment anyone sees his eyes, the moment any of my enemies make the connection. And they will, Barbara, because I made it in 5 minutes. Your children become targets. The poverty you chose won't protect them from what's coming. Then we'll run. You can't run far enough." Milton's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. "Raymond, I need you at the house, now." "We have a situation." "What are you doing?" Barbara demanded. "Making sure your children, our children, don't die in the next 24 hours. Milton looked at her with something that might have been regret. "You tried to protect them. I respect that. But the protection phase is over. They've been discovered. So now we enter the survival phase. And that requires resources you don't have and strategies you don't know." "I don't want your help." "That's too bad, because you're getting it whether you want it or not." Milton moved closer, his voice dropping. "I missed 3 years of their lives. I didn't know they existed. But now I do. And nobody, not you, not my enemies, not anyone, will keep me from protecting them. So you can cooperate and make this easier. Or you can fight me and make it harder. But either way, from this moment forward, your children are under my protection." The gates at the end of the driveway opened again. A black SUV pulled through, moving fast, pulling up beside Barbara's van with precision that suggested military training. A man emerged, late 40s, built like a soldier, moving with professional efficiency. "Boss, you called?" "Raymond, meet Barbara Long and her children." Milton's voice carried absolute command. "My children, DNA confirmation will follow, but the eyes and the lullaby are sufficient for now. As of this moment, they're under level 1 protection. Understood?" Raymond's expression didn't change, but Barbara saw him assessing her, the twins, the situation with rapid calculation. "Understood. Threats? Unknown, but assume the Calabresi have informants. Assume they'll discover this within hours, if they haven't already. I want a secure location, full security detail, and a sweep of her current residence for surveillance." "We're not going anywhere with you," Barbara interjected. Both men turned to look at her with expressions that suggested she'd fundamentally misunderstood the situation. "Barbara," Milton said, his voice gentler now, "look at me." She did, reluctantly. "Someone set up tonight. Someone ordered formula delivery to my address specifically to bring you here. Someone wanted me to discover your children, which means someone already knows about them, which means they are already in danger. So the question isn't whether you're coming with me. The question is whether you're coming voluntarily or whether I have to make this difficult. Would you trust the man you'd hidden from for 3 years? Would you bet your children's lives on the possibility he'd protect them rather than exploit them?" Barbara looked at Lily and Lucas, her babies, her entire world, currently shivering in her arms because her van had no heat, and her life had no margin for anything except survival. Then she looked at Milton James, dangerous, powerful, and currently offering the one thing she'd never been able to provide: real protection. "Fine," she said quietly. "But if you hurt them, if you use them for anything except keeping them safe, I will find a way to destroy you. I don't care how powerful you are. I will burn your entire world down." Milton's smile carried grim respect. "If I hurt them, you won't need to. I'll burn it down myself." Milton's mansion was a fortress disguised as a home. Barbara sat in what Milton called the informal living room, a space larger than her entire apartment, decorated with furniture that probably cost more than she'd earned in her lifetime. Lily and Lucas huddled against her on a leather sofa, both children sensing the tension radiating from every adult in the room. Raymond stood by the door, weapon visible in a shoulder holster, his military bearing suggesting he was ready for combat at any moment. 2 other security personnel, a woman with cold eyes and a young man who looked barely 25, flanked the entrance. And Milton paced like a caged predator, phone pressed to his ear, conducting what sounded like the kind of conversation that decided life and death. "I don't care what time it is, Sarah. I need you at my house within the hour. DNA testing. Rush processing." Pause. "Yes, if me it is—" "I'm aware of what I'm asking. Yes, I'll make it worth your time. Just get here." He ended the call and turned to Barbara. "Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She's my personal physician and completely discreet. She'll conduct paternity testing on the twins to confirm what we already know." "We don't need a test," Barbara said quietly. "I know who their father is. I need legal documentation. If this goes where I think it's going, if my enemies target the twins, I need ironclad proof of paternity for custody battles, protection orders, every legal mechanism available." Milton's jaw clenched. "And I need it before someone tries to claim they're not mine, or that you're lying, or any of the 1,000 ways this could be challenged." "You think like a lawyer." "I think like someone who's spent 20 years surviving in a world where legality is a weapon." Milton stopped pacing, studying Barbara with those distinctive silver-blue eyes. "Tell me everything. From Prague until now. No lies, no omissions. If I'm going to protect them, I need to know what I'm protecting them from." When you've spent 3 years hiding the truth, how do you suddenly expose everything to the one person you've been hiding from? Barbara looked at her twins, both dozing now, exhausted from the emotional chaos, and made her choice. "I was working as a nurse in Prague," she began quietly. "Contract work through an international medical placement agency. The clinic on Masarykovo Street served mostly expatriates and tourists. It was supposed to be a 6-month assignment, a chance to travel and save money for nursing school back home. "How did I end up at your clinic?" Milton asked. "You were brought in at 2 a.m. by 2 men who didn't speak Czech or English. You'd been shot, single bullet wound to the lower left side through and through, but you were losing blood fast. The men paid cash, said you'd had a hunting accident, and left before we could get any information." Milton's expression suggested he remembered that night differently. "It wasn't a hunting accident. I figured that out pretty quickly. Men who have hunting accidents don't get dropped off at obscure clinics by people who disappear before anyone can take their information." Barbara shifted slightly, careful not to wake the twins. "But you were dying." "So I stopped asking questions and started treating the wound." "You saved my life." "I did my job. You were delirious from blood loss and infection for the first 3 days. You kept muttering in what I later realized was Italian mixed with English, calling for someone named Dante, apologizing for something about a treaty failure. I had no idea what any of it meant." Milton's face darkened at the memory. "The Prague Accord, a neutral ground negotiation between 5 families trying to establish territory boundaries across Eastern Europe. Someone decided they didn't want peace and took a shot at me during what was supposed to be a diplomatic dinner. The treaty collapsed, the territories went to war, and I spent 7 days hiding in your clinic while my people fought to extract me." "You told me your name was Marco," Barbara continued. "Marco Rinaldi. Said you were a businessman dealing with import-export contracts. I knew you were lying, but I didn't care. You were a patient. That's all that mattered." "When did it become more than patient nurse?" Barbara felt heat rise in her face despite the circumstances. "Day 5. You were finally lucid, finally able to stay conscious for more than a few hours. We started talking, really talking. You asked about my life, my dreams, why I was working in Prague. I asked about yours, and you told me these elaborate stories about importing Italian wine and olive oil, about your family's vineyard, about growing up in Tuscany." "All lies," Milton said quietly. "Beautiful lies. Convincing lies." Barbara's voice caught slightly. "You were charming when you weren't being terrifying. You listened like what I said actually mattered. You made me laugh during a time when I felt completely alone in a foreign country. And you looked at me like I was more than just the nurse keeping you alive." "Because you were," Milton said with unexpected intensity. "You were the first person in years who saw me as human instead of useful, who cared whether I lived or died beyond what my survival meant strategically." They stared at each other across the expensive living room, years and secrets and impossible circumstances between them. "The night before you left," Barbara said quietly, "you told me you had to return home for urgent business. You said you'd try to come back, that you wanted to see me again. You kissed me, and I—" She stopped, unwilling to continue that memory with Raymond and the security detail listening. "I made a choice that night. 9 months later—" "You had twins. 8 months, 3 weeks, close enough." Barbara looked at her sleeping children. "I didn't realize I was pregnant until 6 weeks after you left. By then, I'd Googled Marco Rinaldi Italian businessman and found nothing. So I tried variations: Marco, Italian, import, export, vineyard. Eventually I tried Marco with Prague shooting and found an article about Milton James, American Mafia boss, being targeted during failed treaty negotiations in Prague. And you ran. I disappeared, ended my contract early, moved back to the States, changed my name from Anna Garcia, the identity I'd been using in Prague, back to my real name, Barbara Long. I made sure there was no paper trail connecting them. When the twins were born, I listed father unknown on their birth certificates. Milton flinched at that detail. You erased me completely. I protected them. Barbara's voice rose enough that Lily stirred slightly before settling back to sleep. More quietly, I looked at Lucas's silver eyes when he was born, and I knew. I knew whose they were. I knew what world their father lived in. So I chose. Poverty over violence. Invisibility over protection. 3 jobs over security. Because at least poverty couldn't kidnap them, couldn't use them as leverage, couldn't hurt them to hurt you. How did you know the lullaby? Milton asked suddenly. I never sang it to you. I barely remember those fever dreams you mentioned. You hummed it, Barbara said. During the worst of the infection, when I was trying to bring your fever down, you hummed that melody over and over. It was the only thing that seemed to calm you. So I learned it, and I hummed it back to you. And eventually, you stabilized. Later, when Lucas was a baby and nothing else would soothe him, I tried that melody. It worked. So I kept using it, never knowing it was your family's song, never imagining it was a genetic marker as distinctive as his eyes. When coincidence reveals what deliberate secrecy tried to hide, is it fate or just terrible luck? Milton sat down heavily in a chair across from Barbara, suddenly looking less like a dangerous mafia boss and more like a man processing information that fundamentally changed his understanding of his own life. 3 years, he said quietly. I've had children for 3 years and never knew it. I missed their births, their first words, their first steps. I missed everything because you decided I was too dangerous to tell. Yes, Barbara said, without apology. And I'd make the same choice again, because until tonight, they were safe. They were hidden. They were living in poverty, Milton interrupted, his voice sharp. Sleeping in a van with no heat. Watching their mother work herself to exhaustion for jobs that barely keep you fed. You call that safe? Compared to being kidnapped by your enemies? Yes! Well, congratulations! Your safety measures just expired. Milton pulled out his phone, showing Barbara a text message. Word on street. Milton James has a kid. Silver Eyes spotted in Thornhill Heights. Calabrese asking questions. Leo Barbara's blood went cold. Who's Leo? One of my younger operatives. He has contacts throughout the city, hears things before they become common knowledge. Milton's expression was grim. The Calabrese family is my primary rival. If they've heard about Lucas's eyes, they're already planning how to use him against me. But how? We just got here. Someone set this up, Raymond interjected from his position by the door. Boss, that formula delivery wasn't coincidence. Someone orchestrated bringing Barbara and the kids to your house specifically so you'd discover them. Someone wanted this revealed. Milton nodded slowly. Which means someone's been watching Barbara, probably for weeks. Long enough to confirm the twins' existence, the eye color, the connection to me. Then they arranged a scenario where I'd discover them, triggering exactly the chaos we're seeing now. Who would do that? Barbara asked. Who benefits from you knowing about the twins? Anyone who wants me distracted, Milton said. Anyone who thinks fatherhood makes me weak, vulnerable, divided in my focus. And that's, he paused, that's most of my enemies and half of my own organization. The doorbell rang, a subtle chime that felt absurd in the middle of this conversation. Raymond tensed, hand moving to his weapon, but Milton shook his head. That'll be Dr. Mitchell. Let her in. The woman who entered looked to be in her early 40s, carrying a medical bag and an expression that suggested she was deeply unimpressed with being summoned at 1:30 a.m. She had short red hair, sharp green eyes, and the demeanor of someone who'd seen everything and wasn't easily shocked. "Milton, this had better be life or death." Then she saw Barbara and the twins, and her expression shifted to curiosity. Or apparently life-changing. "Hello, I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Barbara Long. These are my children, Lily and Lucas. And you need paternity testing at 1:30 in the morning because—" Sarah looked at Milton expectantly. "Because they're mine," Milton said flatly. "Look at the boy's eyes." Sarah moved closer, studying Lucas with professional interest. Even asleep, his distinctive silver-blue eyes were visible beneath translucent lids. Oh my, that's definitely the James marker." "DNA confirmation needed within 24 hours, Milton said. "Legal documentation. Full paternity panel. Cost is irrelevant." "Obviously." Sarah opened her medical bag, pulling out collection swabs. "I'll need samples from all three of you. The children first. I can do it without waking them if the mother assists." Barbara helped Sarah collect cheek swabs from both twins with practiced efficiency. Neither child waking beyond slight fussiness before settling back to sleep. Then Sarah took samples from Milton and Barbara herself. "I'll have preliminary results in 6 hours, full legal documentation by this evening," Sarah said, packing her materials. "Though honestly, Milton, if I had to bet money, I'd say those children are definitely yours based on the eyes alone. That genetic trait is ridiculously distinctive." "How distinctive?" Barbara asked. "The specific shade of silver blue in Milton's family appears in approximately 1 in 10 million people globally. In this city of 3 million, statistically, there should be maybe one other person with those eyes. And that one person is Milton's second cousin in Boston." Sarah looked at Lucas thoughtfully. Seeing it in a child who just happens to be at Milton's house, delivered by a woman he apparently has history with, the odds against coincidence are astronomical. "We need to know for sure," Milton said. "You'll know by tonight." Sarah closed her medical bag, then turned to Barbara with unexpected gentleness. "How are you holding up? This has to be overwhelming." Barbara started to say, "Fine," but the lie wouldn't come. "I'm terrified. I've been hiding them for 3 years, and now everything's exposed. And I don't know if I made the right choices, or if I've just been deluding myself that poverty was safer than—" She gestured at Milton. "This. Poverty is never safe," Sarah said bluntly, "but neither is the mafia world. You were choosing between 2 dangerous options. There's no right answer in that situation." "Helpful, Sarah," Milton said dryly. "You wanted my medical expertise, not my diplomacy." Sarah headed toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Milton, if those children are yours, and I'm 100% certain they are, you should know that fatherhood changes people. Try to let it change you in good ways." After she left, silence settled over the room. Barbara held her sleeping twins. Milton sat processing revelations that had upended his carefully controlled life, and Raymond remained at vigilant attention, ready for threats both recognized the night. "What happens now?" Barbara asked quietly. "Now we wait for confirmation," Milton said. "And we prepare for war." "War? The Calabrese won't wait long once they confirm the twins exist. They'll move fast, trying to grab the children before I can secure them properly. We have maybe 48 hours before everything escalates." Milton stood, moving to the window overlooking the estate grounds. "Raymond, I want full security protocols implemented by dawn, 24-hour guard rotation, vehicle escorts for any movement." Background checks on everyone who's had contact with Barbara or the twins in the past 6 months. On it, boss. Raymond pulled out his phone and began coordinating. And I want to know who set up tonight, Milton continued, his voice hardening. Who arranged that formula delivery? Who's been watching Barbara? Who leaked information to the Calabrese? Someone in my organization or close to it orchestrated this reveal. Find them. What about us? Barbara asked. Do we just stay here? For tonight, yes. Tomorrow, I'll move you to a more secure location. The beach house. It's 40 miles from the city. Isolated, designed for exactly this kind of situation. You have a beach house specifically designed for protecting people from mafia violence? I have several properties designed for various security scenarios. Milton turned from the window, his silver blue eyes so similar to Lucas's meeting hers. Welcome to my world, Barbara. It's not the poverty you chose, but it comes with its own costs. 2 weeks later, Barbara stood in her new reality with a mixture of gratitude and claustrophobia. The beach house was beautiful, modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, rooms filled with expensive furniture, and every comfort money could buy. It had a full security system, guards rotating shifts 24/7, bulletproof glass, and enough security protocols to protect a small country's president. It also felt like a prison. I need to go into town, Barbara told Raymond for the 3rd time that morning. Just for a few hours. The twins need clothes that actually fit. They're growing like weeds. I need to see my friend Rosa. Let her know I'm okay. I need to feel like a human being instead of a protected asset. Raymond's expression suggested he'd heard this argument before. It's not safe, Barbara. Nothing is safe. I get that, but I'm going stir-crazy, and the twins can sense it. They need normalcy, playgrounds, other children, sunshine instead of security cameras. Barbara's voice cracked slightly. Please, just a quick trip to the outdoor market. Lots of people, public space, daylight, what could possibly happen? Raymond studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, but I'm coming with you, plus 2 additional security personnel. Non-negotiable. Deal. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the Riverside Market, a sprawling outdoor space filled with vendors selling everything from fresh produce to handmade crafts. It was crowded with Saturday morning shoppers, families with strollers, street musicians playing for tips. Normal. Wonderfully, beautifully normal. Lily and Lucas were ecstatic. They'd been cooped up in the beach house for 2 weeks, and the sensory overload of the market, colors, sounds, smells, had them squealing with delight. Barbara held Lily's hand while Lucas rode in a cart Raymond was pushing, and for 20 glorious minutes she felt like herself again. Not Milton James's baby mama, not the woman hiding from mafia violence, just a mother shopping with her children. She was examining a vendor's display of children's shoes when she noticed him. A man, maybe 35, standing 3 stalls away, pretending to look at produce while his eyes tracked the twins. He wore a jacket despite the warm weather, the kind of jacket that could hide weapons, and he was speaking quietly into a phone, his attention never leaving Lucas. Barbara's maternal instincts screamed danger. She looked for Raymond, but he'd stepped away momentarily to take a call from Milton, leaving them with just 1 security guard, the young man Leo, who looked barely old enough to shave, let alone protect them from serious threats. Leo, Barbara said quietly. That man, 3 stalls back. He's watching us. Leo's eyes flicked in the direction Barbara indicated, and his expression went instantly cold and professional. Stay close to me. We're leaving. What's wrong? That's Calabrese. I recognize him from intelligence photos. Leo's hand moved under his jacket, undoubtedly reaching for a weapon. We need to go now. But it was already too late. Two more men appeared, boxing them in from different directions, moving with coordinated precision that suggested military training. The market's cheerful chaos suddenly felt like a trap. "Barbara Long," the first man said, moving closer. "We're not here to hurt you. The Calabrese family just wants to have a conversation about your children." "Stay away from us," Barbara said, her voice carrying enough volume to draw attention from nearby shoppers. "We can do this easy or hard," the man continued, ignoring the growing audience. "But either way, those children are coming with us. The boy especially. Mr. Calabrese has some questions about those distinctive eyes." "Over my dead body," Barbara said. "That can be arranged." Everything happened at once. Leo pulled his weapon, positioning himself between Barbara and the Calabrese soldiers. The first man lunged for Lucas in the cart. Barbara grabbed a heavy metal display pole from a nearby vendor's stall and swung it with all her strength, connecting with the man's shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. Lily started screaming. Lucas was crying. Shoppers scattered, some running, others pulling out phones to record the chaos. The second Calabrese soldier grabbed for Lily, and Barbara did something she'd never imagined herself capable of. She bit him, hard, drawing blood. He yelped and jerked back, and Barbara scooped Lily into her arms while simultaneously kicking the shopping cart containing Lucas toward Leo. "Get them out of here!" she screamed at Leo. Gunfire erupted. Not from Leo, he was trying not to shoot with so many civilians around, but from the Calabrese soldiers, who apparently had no such compunctions. Bullets tore through vendor stalls, shattering displays, sending shoppers diving for cover. Barbara threw herself over the shopping cart, using her body to shield Lucas, while Leo returned fire with controlled precision. He dropped one Calabrese soldier with 2 shots to center mass, then pivoted to engage the second. The third soldier, the one who'd been watching them initially, pulled Barbara up by her hair, his arm wrapping around her throat, using her as a human shield while he aimed his weapon at Leo. "Drop it, kid, or I snap her neck." Barbara couldn't breathe. The man's arm was crushing her windpipe, her vision starting to blur. Raymond appeared like an avenging angel. He'd been 50 yards away when the shooting started, sprinting through the market the moment he heard gunfire. He tackled the man holding Barbara with the force of a freight train, both men going down hard on the pavement. What followed was brutal, efficient violence. Raymond wasn't trying to arrest or subdue. He was eliminating a threat. 3 strikes, precise and devastating, and the Calabrese soldier was unconscious or dead. Barbara couldn't tell which, and didn't care. "Barbara!" Raymond grabbed her arm. "Can you run?" "Yes, the twins. Leo's got them. Move!" They ran through the market. Leo ahead of them, pushing the shopping cart with Lucas at speeds that should have been impossible. Lily clutched in Barbara's arms, Raymond covering their retreat, while more Calabrese soldiers appeared from nowhere. How many were there? 6? 8? This wasn't a random attack. This was a coordinated military operation in broad daylight. They reached Raymond's SUV, bulletproof, reinforced, the engine already running because Raymond had left it in combat-ready mode. Barbara and the twins dove into the back seat, while Leo and Raymond provided covering fire. "Go, go, go!" Raymond roared, and Leo hit the gas. The SUV rocketed out of the parking area, tires screaming, other vehicles swerving to avoid them. Behind them, 2 cars full of Calabrese soldiers gave chase. Barbara held both twins against her chest. their terrified crying mixing with the sound of bullets hitting the SUV's armored exterior. The impacts sounded like hail on a metal roof, deadly hail, each strike proof that only the vehicle's armor was keeping them alive. "Raymond!" Leo shouted from the driver's seat. "They're trying to box us in. Lose them!" Raymond returned fire through a gun port in the rear window, his aim steady despite the vehicle's violent motion. "Take the service road, the narrow one. They can't follow in formation." Leo executed a turn that would have seemed impossible for a vehicle this size, cutting through an alley barely wide enough for the SUV. Behind them, one Calabrese car attempted to follow and clipped a dumpster, spinning out in a screech of metal. But the second pursuit vehicle stayed with them, driver showing professional skill. "They're not backing off," Raymond growled. "Leo, how far to the beach house?" 20 miles. Maybe 25 minutes at this speed." "We won't make it. They'll call in reinforcements, set up roadblocks." Raymond's mind was clearly racing through tactical scenarios. "Take us to the secondary safe house, the one in Harborview. Boss said—" "I don't care what boss said. We can't lead them to the primary safe house where Milton is." Raymond fired again, and the pursuing vehicle swerved, but kept coming. "Call Milton. Tell him what happened. Tell him—" He stopped, listening to something on his earpiece. "Understood." "What?" Barbara demanded, still clutching the twins. "Milton already knows. The market attack was recorded by about 30 different phones. It's already on social media. He's mobilizing everyone. This isn't just about protecting you anymore. The Calabrese just declared war in public." 15 minutes later, they pulled into an underground garage beneath a nondescript building in Harborview, a working-class neighborhood where nobody asked questions and everyone minded their own business. The secondary safe house turned out to be a fortified apartment on the building's top floor. Leo swept it for threats, while Raymond kept Barbara and the twins in the garage, weapon drawn, ready for anything. "Clear!" Leo called down. They rode the elevator in tense silence. Both twins had stopped crying, but remained eerily quiet. That particular shell-shocked silence of children who'd experienced trauma beyond their comprehension. The apartment was spare but functional. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, living area with reinforced windows. Raymond immediately began checking security protocols while Leo positioned himself by the door. "Mama," Lily whispered, "the bad men wanted to take us." "I know, baby, but they didn't. Raymond and Leo kept us safe." "Will they come back?" How do you explain violence to 3-year-olds? How do you promise safety when you're not sure it exists? "Not here," Barbara said with more confidence than she felt. "This place is secret. The bad men don't know about it." A phone rang, Raymond's. He answered immediately. "Boss?" Barbara couldn't hear Milton's side of the conversation, but she watched Raymond's expression shift from professional calm to something like concern. "Understood. Yes, she's fine. Both twins unharmed. Leo performed exceptionally. Boss, the kid saved their lives. Without him—" Pause. 30 minutes. Raymond ended the call and turned to Barbara. "Milton's coming here, with a full security detail. He wants to move you to a different location tonight, somewhere the Calabrese definitely can't find." "Where?" "He didn't say, but knowing Milton, probably something dramatically secure and impossible to trace." 28 minutes later, Milton apparently exceeded speed limits when his children were involved. The door opened, and the Mafia boss entered the apartment like a contained explosion. He looked past Raymond and Leo, his eyes finding Barbara and the twins immediately. Relief, fury, and something deeper all crossed his face in rapid succession. "Are you hurt?" His voice was controlled, but Barbara heard the edge beneath. "We're fine. Scared, but fine." Barbara stood, still holding both twins. "Milton, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have insisted on going to the market. This isn't your fault." Milton moved closer, studying each twin with intensity, checking for any sign of injury. "This is on me. I underestimated how quickly the Calabrese would move, how coordinated their attack would be." He looked at Raymond. "Casualties? 2 Calabrese soldiers dead. 1 critical. Leo took 1 out. I handled another. The 3rd won't be making reports anytime soon." Raymond's voice carried grim satisfaction. "Our side. No injuries. The SUV took some damage, but nothing critical." Milton turned to Leo, who looked simultaneously proud and terrified at being the focus of his boss's attention. "I hear you saved them." "I did my job, sir." "You did more than your job. You protected my children when they were outnumbered and outgunned." "That's not just professional, that's loyalty." Milton's expression softened fractionally. "Thank you, Leo." The young man's face flushed with pride. "Always, boss." Milton turned back to Barbara. "We need to talk. Privately." He led her to the apartment's bedroom. Sparse, just a bed and nightstand, and closed the door. Through the thin walls, Barbara could hear Raymond entertaining the twins with some story about his military days. "I should have protected them better," Milton said without preamble. "Should have anticipated the Calabrese would move this fast, that they'd attack in public." "They used 8 soldiers," Barbara interrupted. 8. In a crowded market in broad daylight. That's insane. "That's desperation. The Calabrese see my children as the ultimate leverage. Kidnap them, they control me, or kill them. They remove my future heirs and destabilize my organization." Milton's jaw clenched. "Isabella Romano is willing to violate every code we live by if it means destroying me." "What codes?" "Children are supposed to be off-limits, neutral. Even in the worst gang wars, even during the bloodiest territory disputes, children don't get targeted. It's the one line nobody crosses." Milton's voice turned cold. "Isabella just crossed it. In public. On camera. Which means she's either desperate enough not to care about the consequences, or confident enough to think she'll win before consequences matter." "What do we do?" Milton looked at her for a long moment. "I need to ask you something, and I need absolute honesty. Okay? Are you in this? Fully in this?" Milton's silver blue eyes, so like Lucas's, held hers intensely. "Because we're past the point of half measures. The Calabrese know about the twins. My enemies know I have a vulnerability. Every territorial rival will be calculating whether my distraction with family makes me weak enough to challenge." "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if you trust me. If you'll let me protect you and the twins the way they need to be protected, which means deep security, isolated locations, guards around the clock. Which means giving up the independence you've fought so hard to maintain. Which means fully entering my world, with all the darkness that entails." Milton's voice dropped. "I can keep them alive, Barbara, but only if you stop fighting me on the methods. When protection requires surrendering the independence you've sacrificed everything to maintain, what do you choose?" Barbara thought about the market attack, about Calabrese soldiers grabbing for her children, about the terror in Lily's eyes, the screaming from Lucas, the very real possibility that today could have ended with her babies kidnapped or dead. "I'm in," she said quietly. "Fully in, whatever it takes to keep them safe. Even if it means building a life with me? Not romantically, I'm not asking for that, but as co-parents, partners in keeping these children alive? Even then, Milton nodded slowly. Then here's what happens next. We're moving to the beach house tonight. It's the most secure location I have. I'm pulling my top security team in full-time, and I'm declaring formal protection over the twins to every organization in the city, criminal and legitimate. Everyone will know that touching them means war with the Crimson Rose. That makes them bigger targets. It makes them protected. There's a difference. Milton moved toward the door, then paused. And Barbara, for what it's worth, I'm glad you trust me. I know that's not easy given our history and the world I represent. I don't trust your world, Barbara said honestly, but I'm starting to trust you. There's a difference there, too. Milton's smile was slight, but genuine. I'll take it. The beach house sat on a private stretch of coastline 40 miles from the city, accessible only by a single winding road that Raymond's security team could monitor from miles away. Modern architecture, all glass and steel and wood, designed to blend with the natural landscape while maintaining perfect security lines of sight. Barbara stood on the deck, overlooking the ocean, while Lily and Lucas played in a sandpit Raymond's team had constructed specifically for them. Guards were visible at strategic points. Professional, armed, vigilant. The message was clear. This family was protected. It's beautiful, Barbara admitted to Milton, who'd joined her at the railing. I hate that we need it, but it's beautiful. I bought this property 5 years ago as a retreat, somewhere away from the city, the violence, the constant pressure. I've probably spent a total of 6 weeks here. Milton watched the twins with an expression Barbara was learning to recognize, wonder mixed with regret. Now it's home, because it's the safest place I can keep my children. 2 weeks had passed since the market attack. 2 weeks of intensive security protocols, DNA test confirmations, 99.9%, paternity match, and Milton attempting to learn how to be a father to 3-year-olds. It wasn't going smoothly. They need structure, Barbara had explained that morning after Milton had given in to the twins' demand for ice cream for breakfast. Boundaries, routines, consistency. You can't just give them everything they want. Why not? I have unlimited resources. Because children need to learn limits. They need to understand that wanting something doesn't mean getting it immediately. They need... Barbara had stopped, seeing Milton's genuine confusion. You never had anyone set boundaries for you, did you? My father died when I was 8. My mother couldn't control me. I raised myself in the organization, learning through trial and error, mostly error. Milton had looked almost vulnerable. I don't know how to be what they need. Then learn. Start by reading them that story you promised yesterday, instead of delegating to me. So Milton was learning. Badly, awkwardly, but genuinely. He read picture books with the wrong character voices, attempted tea parties with Lily's stuffed animals, built block towers with Lucas that kept falling because Milton's large hands weren't designed for toddler toys, and slowly, carefully, the twins were warming to him. "Daddy," Lucas called from the sandpit. "Look, castle!" The word, Daddy, still made Milton freeze every time. He'd been Milton for the first week, then Mr. Milton, and just 3 days ago, Lucas had spontaneously called him Daddy, and the name had stuck. Milton descended the deck stairs and knelt in the sand beside Lucas's elaborate construction. "That's an impressive castle. What's it called?" "Castle Lucas," the boy announced proudly. "Perfect name. Does it need a moat?" "What's a moat?" And Milton launched into an explanation of medieval castle defense systems that was probably too advanced for a 3-year-old, but had Lucas utterly fascinated. Barbara watched from the deck, her heart doing complicated things. This dangerous man, this mafia boss who'd spent 20 years building power through violence, was currently covered in sand, explaining siege warfare to a toddler with the same intensity he probably used for actual strategic planning. "He's trying," Raymond observed, appearing beside her with coffee. "I've known Milton for 12 years. Never seen him like this." "Like what?" "Vulnerable, uncertain, willing to look foolish." Raymond's expression carried approval. "Fatherhood is changing him. Is that good or bad for his organization?" "Depends on who you ask. The old guard thinks he's going soft. The younger members think he's becoming more human." Raymond sipped his coffee. "But everyone agrees the Calabrese attack changed the equation. We're not just protecting the boss anymore. We're protecting his family. That makes loyalty personal." "Is that why you're here? Loyalty?" "Partly, but also because I like the twins. They're good kids. They deserve protection." Raymond paused. "And because I've seen what happens to Milton when he loses people he cares about. I'd rather not see that again." "What happens?" "He becomes the monster everyone thinks he already is. Cold, ruthless, willing to burn the world down to punish whoever caused the loss." Raymond's voice was quiet. "His wife, the twins' mother in his previous relationship, died 3 years ago. Car accident. Milton spent 6 months hunting the drunk driver, not just for justice, but for vengeance. Nearly destroyed himself in the process. I don't want to see that again." "Wait, Milton was married before?" Barbara's surprise was genuine. "Engaged. She died before the wedding." Raymond looked uncomfortable, clearly regretting saying anything. "That's his story to tell, not mine. Just know that he's not good at losing people." Before Barbara could respond, her phone rang, a number she recognized as Rosa, her former neighbor and best friend from the old apartment. "Rosa, I'm sorry I haven't called. Everything's been—" "Where are you?" Rosa's voice was tight with anxiety. "Barbara, I've had people coming by asking about you, about the twins. Men in expensive suits asking when I last saw you, where you might have gone, if I knew who the twins' father was. When the people you left behind become targets because of your secrets, how do you protect them?" "Oh God, Rosa, I'm so sorry. Is it true, what they're saying? That the twins' father is Milton James? The mafia boss?" Barbara's throat tightened. "Yes, it's true. I've been hiding it for 3 years, but someone found out, and now you're in danger. The twins are in danger. Jesus, Barbara, why didn't you tell me?" "Because telling you would have put you in danger. The fewer people who knew, the safer everyone was." Barbara's voice cracked. "Rosa, I need you to be careful. Don't tell these men anything. Don't—" "I already told them I didn't know anything. But Barbara, they didn't believe me. They said—" Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper. "They said they'd be back. That if I was lying, there would be consequences. I'm scared." Barbara looked at Milton, who was still playing with Lucas, but clearly listening to her side of the conversation. She covered the phone. "My friend Rosa, she's being questioned by someone, probably Calabrese. They threatened her." Milton's expression went cold. He stood immediately, pulling out his own phone. "Raymond, I need immediate protection for Rosa Martinez. Address?" He looked at Barbara questioningly. Barbara rattled off Rosa's address, then returned to her phone. "Rosa, listen carefully. Some men are coming to your apartment. They work for Milton. They're going to protect you. Don't be scared. They're on our side." "Barbara, what is happening? This is insane." I know. I know it's insane, but you're my friend, and I won't let anything happen to you because of my secrets. Barbara felt tears threatening. Trust me, please. Let Milton's people protect you. For how long? I don't know. Until this is over. Until the people threatening us are gone. Barbara swallowed hard. Rosa, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to touch you. I know, honey. I know. Rosa's voice softened slightly. Your twins? They're okay? They're safe for now. After the call ended, Barbara stood on the deck, staring at the ocean without seeing it. Milton approached quietly. Rosa will be protected, he said. I'm sending Leo and 3 others. Nobody will touch her. How many more people will get pulled into this? Barbara asked. How many more friends, neighbors, innocent bystanders will become targets because of me, because of the twins? As many as it takes until the Calabresi are stopped. Milton's voice was matter-of-fact. But Barbara, this isn't your fault. You were trying to protect the twins through invisibility. It's the Calabresi who are choosing violence, choosing to threaten innocent people. That's on them, not you. Doesn't make me feel less guilty. Guilt is a luxury you can't afford right now. Save it for when everyone's safe. Milton paused. I need to tell you something about what's happening in my organization. Barbara turned to face him. What? There's been dissent. Some of my lieutenants think I'm distracted, that the twins make me weak, that I should have hidden them better, or not acknowledged them at all. Milton's jaw clenched. My second-in-command, Victor Russo, has been particularly vocal. He's calling for a vote of confidence, basically a formal challenge to my leadership. Can he do that? Technically, yes. The Crimson Rose operates on a modified democratic structure. If enough lieutenants vote against me, I can be removed from leadership. Milton's expression was grim. It's never happened before, but then again, I've never had children before. Victor sees this as the perfect opportunity to seize power. What happens if he succeeds? Then he becomes head of the organization, and I lose the resources to protect you and the twins. The beach house, the guards, the network that keeps the Calabresi at bay, all of that disappears. Milton looked at her directly. Which is why I can't let him succeed. How do you stop him? By proving that family doesn't make me weak. It makes me more dangerous. Because now I'm not just fighting for power or territory. I'm fighting for the survival of my children. And a father protecting his children is the most dangerous opponent you can face. That evening, after the twins were asleep, Barbara found Milton on the beach, staring at the waves with an expression she was learning to recognize. The look of a man planning violence with surgical precision. You're going after Victor, she said, sitting beside him in the sand. I'm going to remind him why challenging me is suicide. Milton didn't look at her. There will be consequences, public ones. Victor needs to understand that threatening my family, even indirectly through political maneuvering, comes with a cost. Will you kill him? Probably. Depends on how stupid he is when I confront him. Milton's voice was matter-of-fact, discussing murder the way others might discuss grocery shopping. Does that bother you? Yes, Barbara said honestly, but less than the thought of losing protection for the twins, which probably makes me a terrible person. It makes you a mother. Morality gets complicated when children's survival is at stake. They sat in silence for several minutes, listening to the waves, both processing the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. I never imagined this, Barbara said quietly. When I got pregnant, I thought I was choosing a hard but simple life. Poverty, yes, but also safety through invisibility. I thought if I could just keep them hidden long enough, they'd grow up never knowing about your world, never being part of it. And instead, they're at the center of a mafia war. Yeah, instead of that. Barbara drew her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Do you resent me? For hiding them? For keeping them from you for 3 years? Milton was quiet for so long Barbara thought he wouldn't answer. Then, yes and no. Yes, because I missed 3 years I can never get back. First words, first steps, thousands of moments I'll never recover. But no, because I understand why you did it. You were trying to protect them from exactly the situation they're in now. Your instincts were right. My world is dangerous. You made the best decision you could with the information you had. That's surprisingly understanding for someone who spent 20 years being ruthless. Fatherhood is teaching me empathy. I'm not enjoying it. Milton smiled slightly. But I'm learning that the world is more complicated than I thought. That people make impossible choices for good reasons. He stopped. That you're a better parent than I am, and I'm lucky the twins have you to balance out whatever damage I inevitably cause. You're not damaging them, Barbara said firmly. You're awkward and uncertain, and you let them eat ice cream for breakfast. But you're trying. That matters more than you realize. Does it matter enough to compensate for the violence they're being exposed to? The guards, the security protocols, the market attack that traumatized them? I don't know. Ask me in 15 years when they're adults dealing with the psychological consequences. Barbara's voice carried dark humor. But for now, they're alive, they're safe, and they have a father who'd burn the world down to protect them. There are worse situations. Milton looked at her, really looked at her, with an intensity that made Barbara's breath catch. You're stronger than you think. Stronger than I am, certainly. I'm terrified constantly. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear. You've been doing that for 3 years. Milton paused. I'm glad they have you. And I'm glad, selfishly, that circumstances forced us back into each other's lives, even if those circumstances are terrible. Are you saying you're glad someone orchestrated exposing the twins? I'm saying I'm glad I know my children exist, that I get the chance to be their father even if I'm terrible at it, that I get to know you again, beyond those 7 days in Prague. Milton's expression softened. You're different than I remembered. Harder. But also more real. Poverty does that. Burns away pretense until all that's left is survival. Well, you survived? And now we'll make sure your survival becomes something more than just existing. Milton stood, extending his hand to help Barbara up. Come on, we should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. Why? What's tomorrow? Tomorrow I deal with Victor. And tomorrow the twins start a new routine. More structure. Like you said, guards who can help with childcare, activities beyond sand castles, maybe even video calls with Rosa so they don't lose connection to their old life. You've been planning this. I'm always planning. It's how I stay alive. Milton's smile was grim. But now I'm planning for 3 people instead of just myself. It's harder, more variables, higher stakes. But also, he paused. Also more meaningful than anything I've done in 20 years. They walked back to the beach house together, guards nodding as they passed, the twins sleeping peacefully in their shared bedroom, and Barbara felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Hope. Cautious, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd survive this. Victor Russo sat in the Crimson Rose headquarters, a converted warehouse in the industrial district that served as the organization's command center, and studied the faces of the lieutenants gathered around the conference table. 23 men, 23 votes that would determine whether Milton James remained their boss or whether Victor's carefully planned coup would succeed. "Gentlemen," Victor began, his voice carrying the smooth confidence of someone who'd been planning this moment for months. "We're here to discuss the leadership crisis that's been developing over the past month, since Milton discovered his children." Several lieutenants shifted uncomfortably. Even mentioning the twins felt like dangerous territory. "I want to be clear," Victor continued. "This isn't about the children themselves, their innocence. This is about Milton's judgment, his priorities, his fitness to lead." "Explain," Dominic Santoro said. The older lieutenant's voice carried weight. His vote would influence others. "Milton has been absent from headquarters for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. He's holed up in a beach house, playing house with a delivery woman and 2 3-year-olds while the Calabrese test our borders, our drug routes get renegotiated by competitors, and every rival organization watches to see if we're weak." "He's protecting his family," one lieutenant objected. "Any father would—" "A father, yes, but a mafia boss?" Victor's voice hardened. "We don't have the luxury of normal fatherhood. We have responsibilities, territories, soldiers who depend on our leadership, and Milton has abandoned all of that because he can't separate personal matters from professional obligations." "What are you proposing?" Dominic asked carefully. "A vote of confidence. If the majority of lieutenants agree that Milton's current distraction makes him unfit for leadership, I'll assume temporary control until he demonstrates he can balance personal and professional responsibilities." "Temporary," another lieutenant emphasized. "You're not trying to permanently replace him." "Of course not," Victor lied smoothly. "Milton built this organization. He's earned respect. But he's also human, and humans make mistakes. We're simply providing organizational structure to correct a mistake before it destroys us." The discussion went on for 2 hours. Arguments for and against, concerns about tradition versus adaptation, questions about whether acknowledging children made Milton weaker or more invested in the organization's future. Finally, Dominic called for the vote. "All those in favor of Victor Russo, assuming temporary leadership of the Crimson Rose Syndicate, raise your hands." Victor watched the hands go up, counting carefully. His own supporters, lieutenants he'd been cultivating for months with promises and favors. The pragmatists, who saw Milton's absence as genuine weakness. The ambitious ones who thought a leadership change might create opportunities for their own advancement. 11 hands, exactly half plus 1. A bare majority, but majority nonetheless. All opposed? 9 hands. 3 lieutenants abstained, waiting to see which way the wind blew before committing. "Motion carries," Dominic announced, his voice neutral, but his expression suggesting deep discomfort. "Victor Russo assumes temporary leadership of the Crimson Rose, effective immediately. Milton James will be informed." The conference room door exploded open. Raymond Cole stood in the entrance, weapon drawn, his military bearing radiating barely contained fury. Behind him, 6 loyalists from Milton's personal security team fanned out, all armed, all clearly prepared for violence. "Nobody's informing Milton of anything," Raymond said coldly, "because this vote is invalid." "Raymond," Victor started. "Shut up! You staged a coup while the boss was protecting his children from assassination attempts. You called a vote without proper notification procedures. And," Raymond pulled out his phone, playing a recording that made the room go absolutely silent. Victor's voice, clear as day. "Once I have control of the organization, the children become liability. Milton will have to choose between them and his power. When he chooses them, and he will, we eliminate all three. Problem solved. The recording continued, capturing Victor's conspiracy with Isabella Romano. Plans to leak the beach house location. Strategies for using the twins as bait to lure Milton into a trap. "You're not assuming temporary leadership," Raymond said, his voice absolutely cold. "You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and collaboration with enemy organizations. And when Milton hears this recording, when he understands you were planning to murder his children, your life expectancy becomes measurable in hours." Victor went for his weapon, a desperate, stupid move. Raymond shot him in the shoulder before Victor's gun even cleared its holster. The Mafia lieutenant went down screaming, blood spreading across his expensive suit. "Medic," Raymond commanded one of his team, "keep him alive. Milton will want to handle this personally." He looked around the conference room, making eye contact with every lieutenant who'd voted for Victor. "Anyone else want to question the boss's leadership? Anyone else think fatherhood makes him weak? Because I guarantee, when he deals with Victor, you'll understand exactly how dangerous a father protecting his children can be." Silence. Even the lieutenants who'd supported Victor looked horrified at the recording they'd just heard. "Good," Raymond said. "Meeting adjourned. Get back to your territories and remember why we follow Milton James. Not because he's perfect. Because he's loyal. And loyalty, real loyalty, is rare in our world." At the beach house, Milton received Raymond's call with cold satisfaction. Victor's secured? Barely alive, but stable. The recording worked perfectly. Every lieutenant heard him admit to planning to murder the twins. Raymond's voice carried grim approval. "The coup is dead, boss. Your position is secure." Secure for now. But Victor was right about one thing. I have been absent. Distracted. The organization needs leadership, and I've been giving them an empty chair. Milton looked at Barbara, who had been listening to his side of the conversation. "I need to return to the city, handle Victor personally, reassert control." "No," Barbara said immediately. "What?" "You're not leaving us here while you go handle Mafia business. We're coming with you." "Absolutely not. The city is dangerous right now. The beach house was just proven to be compromised. Victor knew the location, which means the Calabrese probably know it too. Staying here while you're gone makes us sitting targets." Barbara's voice was firm. "We're safer with you, in the city, surrounded by your full organization, than we are isolated here with Victor's loyalists, potentially knowing exactly where we are. When safety requires proximity to danger, how do you calculate risk?" Milton clearly wanted to argue, but Barbara saw him recognize the logic. "Fine, but you and the twins stay in the secured penthouse at headquarters. Bulletproof glass, guards on every floor. No external access except controlled elevators." Deal. 2 hours later, they arrived at the Crimson Rose headquarters. The building looked like a normal commercial warehouse from outside. But the interior was pure Mafia fortress. Security checkpoints, armed guards, surveillance systems that could probably track a mouse through the ventilation system. Barbara and the twins were escorted to the top-floor penthouse, which turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. Living areas, bedrooms, a kitchen, even a small play area that someone had hastily set up with toys still in their packages. "Raymond did this," Milton explained, gesturing at the play area. "Called ahead, had supplies delivered. He's been thinking about child-proofing our facilities. That's actually very thoughtful. Raymond's good at logistics. It's why he's my head of security." Milton crouched down to the twins' level. Lily, Lucas, I need to go handle some business downstairs. Important grown-up stuff. But you'll stay here with Mama, and guards will be right outside the door. You're completely safe." "Why can't we come?" Lucas asked. "Because where I'm going isn't safe for children. There are things Daddy has to do that you shouldn't see." "Bad things?" Lily's voice was small, worried. Milton hesitated, clearly wrestling with how honest to be. "Sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things to protect the people they love. Not bad, exactly. Just complicated. And sometimes scary." "Like when Mama fought the bad men at the market?" Lucas asked. "Exactly like that. Your Mama was very brave, and now Daddy needs to be brave too." After Milton left, Barbara distracted the twins with the new toys, reading books, anything to keep them from asking questions about what was happening downstairs. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. Victor was down there, injured, captured, facing judgment from the man whose children he'd planned to murder. Milton had been clear about what that judgment would be. An hour passed, then 2. Barbara was reading the same story for the 3rd time when her phone buzzed with a text from Milton. "It's done. Victor won't be a problem anymore. I'll be up in 10 minutes. There's blood on my suit. I'm changing first. Don't want to scare the twins." Barbara felt her stomach turn. She knew what "it's done" meant, knew what "blood on my suit" implied. This was the reality of Milton's world. Violence as policy, death as solution, judgment that came with bullets rather than courtrooms. And she'd chosen to bring her children into it. When Milton returned 15 minutes later, he'd changed into clean clothes, washed his hands multiple times based on how red they looked, and carried an expression that suggested he'd done something necessary but not enjoyed. "How are they?" he asked, looking at the twins playing with building blocks. "They're fine. They don't know anything happened." "Good." Milton sat heavily on the couch, exhaustion visible in every line of his body. "Victor's dealt with. The lieutenants understand the consequences of betrayal. The organization knows my children are protected by every resource we have." How did it happen? Quickly. He didn't suffer long." Milton's voice was flat, professional. "He'd planned to kill my children, Barbara. He'd collaborated with our worst enemies. He'd staged a coup during a crisis. There was only one possible outcome." "I know. I'm not judging. Barbara struggled with words. "I need to understand the world we're living in. The rules that govern it, what's acceptable, and what crosses lines." "Children are the line," Milton said firmly. "Everything else. Territory, money, power, pride. Those are negotiable. But children, attacking children, threatening children, even talking about harming children, that's an automatic death sentence. Victor crossed that line, he paid for it. And now? Now we rebuild. I return to active leadership, but with new protocols. The twins aren't hidden or ignored. They're integrated. Not into the violence, but into the structure. The organization knows they exist, knows they're protected, knows that anyone who harms them faces consequences that make Victor's death look gentle. That makes them targets. No, that makes them protected. There's a difference. Milton looked at her intently. Hiding them made them vulnerable. One successful kidnapping, and we'd have no recourse, no support, no allies. But declaring them openly, backing them with organizational power, that makes attacking them suicide. Most of my enemies are ruthless, but they're not stupid. They won't risk total war for a maybe successful kidnapping. Barbara wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that protection through visibility was better than protection through hiding. But 3 years of opposite instincts were hard to overcome. "I need time," she said quietly. "Time to adapt to this. To trust that this world can keep them safe. Take all the time you need. But Barbara?" Milton's voice was gentle. "They are safe. Safer than they were in your van with no heat. Safer than they were delivering with you at midnight. Safer than they've ever been. Yes, there's danger, but there's also protection. Real, comprehensive protection. Let yourself believe that." 3 weeks after Victor's execution, life had settled into a new normal. The twins spent weekdays at the beach house with Barbara, guards rotating shifts, Raymond supervising security with military precision. Weekends, they came to the city headquarters, where Milton had converted an entire floor into child-friendly space, play areas, bedrooms, even a small indoor playground that had cost more than most people's cars. The organization adapted. Lieutenants grew accustomed to seeing 3-year-olds in the building. Guards learned to balance vigilance with not scaring children. And Milton, awkward, uncertain Milton, slowly became more comfortable in his role as father. He was reading Lily a bedtime story, finally getting the character voices right, when Raymond's urgent knock interrupted. "Boss, we've got a problem." Milton closed the book carefully, kissed Lily's forehead, and stepped outside the bedroom. "What kind of problem?" "Isabella Romano just made contact. She wants a meeting. Neutral ground. Says she has information about who set up the initial exposure of the twins, who arranged that formula delivery. It's a trap, probably, but she's offering proof. Recordings, documents, the whole chain of conspiracy. Says there's a bigger player we haven't identified yet." Milton considered carefully. "Set up the meeting, public location, daylight, full security detail. And Raymond? If this goes sideways, you get Barbara and the twins out immediately. Don't wait for me, just get them to safety." Understood. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at a waterfront restaurant, public, crowded, neutral ground where neither side could easily stage an ambush. Milton arrived with 6 guards. Raymond at his right hand, every precaution in place. Isabella Romano sat at a corner table, flanked by her own security detail, looking every inch the matriarch who'd run the Calabrese family for 15 years. "Milton?" She greeted him with cold professionalism. "Thank you for coming. You said you have information about who exposed my children." "I do. But first, we need to discuss why I'm giving it to you." Isabella gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit. Let's be civilized about this." Milton sat, every muscle tense, ready for violence despite the public setting. "Talk." "The market attack was unauthorized. I didn't order it. When I found out my soldiers had moved against children in broad daylight, I had them executed. All of them." Isabella's voice carried genuine anger. "There are rules, Milton. Lines we don't cross. Children are one of those lines. Your soldiers were following someone's orders." "Yes, mine, supposedly. Except I never gave those orders. Someone forged communications, made my soldiers think I'd authorized the attack, used my name to break the most fundamental rule we have." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "Someone was trying to trigger a war between our families using your children as the fuse." "Who?" Isabella slid a tablet across the table. On it were recordings, documents, financial transactions, all pointing to a conspiracy that made Milton's blood run cold. "Vincent Calabrese," Isabella said. "My nephew. He's been coordinating with someone in your organization. Not Victor. Someone else, to destabilize both our families. The goal is to create enough chaos that he can seize control of the Calabrese. his unknown ally, can take your organization, and together they'll carve up the city. Milton studied the evidence with growing cold fury. The conspiracy was extensive, sophisticated, and absolutely damning. Who's Vincent's partner in my organization? That I don't know. He's been careful about protecting his ally's identity, but Milton, Isabella leaned forward. Vincent is planning another attack. On the beach house. He has the location, the security codes, the guard schedules. He's planning to hit it during the coastal storm forecast for this weekend, when weather will delay your backup, when visibility will favor the attackers. Why are you telling me this? Because Vincent violated my authority, broke our code, and used children as weapons. That's unforgivable. I may be your enemy, Milton, but I'm not without principles. Isabella's voice turned cold. Help me eliminate Vincent, and I'll give you the evidence of who in your organization is helping him. Then we can return to our normal professional hostilities without dragging children into the crossfire. Milton made his decision. Deal. But Isabella, if you're lying, if this is a setup, I will burn the Calabrese family to ash. Your nephew, your soldiers, your operations, all of it. If I'm lying, you have my permission. Isabella stood, extending her hand. But I'm not. Vincent has made this personal, and I always eliminate personal threats. They shook hands, two crime bosses making alliance against mutual betrayers, and Milton returned to the beach house with new understanding of the danger they faced. He found Barbara in the kitchen, preparing dinner while the twins played nearby. She took one look at his expression and knew something was wrong. "Tell me," she said quietly, moving away from where the children could hear. Milton explained everything: the meeting, Isabella's revelation, the planned attack on the beach house. "We need to leave," Barbara said immediately. "Tonight. Go somewhere else. Running won't work. They'll just follow. We need to deal with Vincent and whoever's helping him." Milton's jaw clenched. "But I'm not keeping you here during the attack. You and the twins are being moved to a secured location in the city, the headquarters building, top floor, under Raymond's personal protection." "What about you?" "I'm staying here. When Vincent's forces attack, I'll be ready. We'll capture him, force him to reveal his partner in my organization, and end this conspiracy permanently. You're using yourself as bait. I'm protecting my family by eliminating threats." Milton's voice was firm. "Barbara, I need you to trust me on this. Let me handle the violence. You keep the twins safe. And if something happens to you, if Vincent's forces overwhelm your defenses, they won't. I have Raymond's entire security team, plus reinforcements from every loyal lieutenant. We'll outnumber and outgun anything Vincent brings." Milton moved closer, his hands gently framing Barbara's face. "But if something does happen, if the worst occurs, Raymond has instructions. He'll protect you and the twins, get you new identities, relocate you somewhere the Calabrese will never find you. You'll be safe. I don't want new identities. I want you to survive." Barbara's voice cracked. "The twins are just starting to know you. They call you Daddy now. You can't do something reckless and get killed." "I won't. I promise." Milton kissed her forehead, a gesture of comfort and commitment. "I've survived 20 years in this world. I'm not dying now that I finally have something worth living for." The coastal storm hit exactly as forecast, a late-season hurricane bringing torrential rain and wind that bent trees sideways. The beach house lights flickered as Milton's security team did final checks on defensive positions. Raymond had relocated Barbara and the twins 6 hours ago, moving them to the headquarters building under cover of the approaching storm. Milton had watched them leave. Lily and Lucas waving goodbye through the SUV's armored windows, not understanding that Daddy was about to face a war to keep them safe. Now he stood in the beach house's main room, rain hammering against bulletproof windows, wind howling through the eaves, waiting for violence he knew was coming. "Boss," one of the guards said, his voice tense. "Movement on the northern perimeter. 6 vehicles approaching. Lights off. Moving slow." "Here we go." Milton checked his weapon, his movements calm despite the approaching danger. "Everyone to positions. Remember, we want at least one prisoner. Preferably Vincent himself. Everyone else is optional." The guards dispersed to their assigned positions, some at windows with long-range weapons, others at strategic interior points, a few positioned in hidden locations designed for exactly this scenario. The power went out, not from the storm, but from deliberate sabotage. Vincent's forces cutting the main line. "Generator should," one guard started to say. The backup generator exploded, a shaped charge taking it out before it could activate. Whoever was attacking had done their homework. "Night vision," Milton commanded, pulling on his own goggles. "If they want darkness, let's show them we own the darkness." The first breach came through the basement, shaped charges on the reinforced door, professional military timing. 3 attackers poured through, moving with coordinated precision. They died in the kill zone Milton's team had prepared, overlapping fields of fire that caught them in a crossfire they never had time to escape. But more attackers were coming. Milton counted at least 15 separate heat signatures through walls. Vincent had brought significant force. "Boss, west window is compromised!" a guard shouted. Milton moved to that position, finding 2 attackers climbing through shattered bulletproof glass. He dropped both with controlled bursts, then repositioned before return fire could locate him. This was a professional assault. Military-trained fighters with sophisticated equipment and overwhelming numbers, which meant Vincent's ally in Milton's organization was someone with significant resources, someone who could hire this level of talent, equip them properly, coordinate this complex an attack. Milton's mind raced through possibilities while his body moved on combat autopilot. Shoot, move, communicate with his team, coordinate defensive positions. Then he heard the voice on a megaphone outside, barely audible over the storm. "Milton James, your children are not at headquarters." Milton's blood went cold. "They're still in the building with you. We have thermal imaging. We know exactly where they're hiding." It was impossible. Barbara and the twins had left hours ago. Multiple guards had confirmed their arrival at headquarters. Unless the vehicle had been intercepted en route. Unless Raymond had been compromised. Unless the entire protective extraction had been a setup. "Barbara?" Milton tried her phone. No answer. He tried Raymond's number. It rang once, then, "Boss, we've got a problem." The line went dead. And Milton understood with horrible certainty that his plan to protect his family by separating them from danger had just made them more vulnerable than if they'd stayed together. 20 minutes earlier, Barbara had realized something was wrong. Raymond had been driving them toward the city, the storm making visibility terrible, when his phone had rung. He'd listened for 10 seconds, his expression shifting from calm to alert to combat ready. "We've been made," he'd said. "Multiple vehicles following us." Somehow, they knew the route. "What do we do?" Barbara had asked, clutching both twins tighter. "We don't go to headquarters. That's compromised. We go to the backup safe house. Hold on." Raymond had executed a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impressive in an action movie and were terrifying in real life with children in the vehicle. but he'd lost the pursuit vehicles, arriving at what he called backup safe house, which turned out to be the beach house. "But Milton's at the beach house," Barbara had objected. "No, he's supposed to be at the beach house, but he left 30 minutes ago for the city. Said he had to handle something urgent with the lieutenants." Raymond had looked confused. "Wait, boss told you he was staying here?" And Barbara had understood with sinking horror that they'd been manipulated. Someone had given her and Milton different information, ensured they'd be separated, made them each think the other knew the plan. Now they were back at the beach house, in the path of the storm, with an attack force approaching. Raymond had made rapid tactical decisions. Secure the house, get Barbara and the twins to the hidden safe room in the basement, prepare for what was coming. "How many attackers?" Barbara had asked. "At least 20, professional, well-equipped." Raymond's voice was grim. "Boss was supposed to be here with full security. Instead, he's in the city, and I have 3 guards to protect you and the twins against an assault force. When every plan falls apart and you're outnumbered 10-1, how do you survive? How do you protect children from trained killers?" The power had gone out. Then the backup generator. Barbara sat in the dark safe room with Lily and Lucas, both twins terrified but trying to be brave, while above them she heard gunfire, explosions, the sounds of combat. Raymond's voice through the intercom. "Barbara, if they breach the house, there's a crawl space behind the false wall in the safe room. It leads to an emergency exit by the beach. Take the twins and run. Don't wait for us. Just run." "Raymond, that's an order. Your job is protecting those children. Mine is buying you time to do it." He paused. "It's been an honor serving your family, Barbara." Then the intercom went silent. The gunfire intensified. Barbara heard guards shouting, explosions that shook the foundation, the systematic destruction of defensive positions. They were losing. Barbara found the false wall Raymond had described, pushed it aside to reveal a narrow crawl space barely big enough for an adult to fit through. "Lily, Lucas, listen to me very carefully. We're going to play a game called Quiet Escape. We're going to crawl through this tunnel, and we have to be absolutely silent. Can you do that?" Both twins nodded, their eyes huge with fear, but trusting Mama completely. "Good. Lily, you go first. Lucas, you follow your sister. I'll be right behind you. No matter what you hear, keep crawling forward." They entered the crawl space, tight, dark, claustrophobic. Barbara could barely move, had to half-crawl, half-drag herself through the narrow passage while making sure the twins kept moving ahead of her. Behind them, she heard the safe room door being breached. Male voices shouting, "They're not here!" "Check for secondary exits." The crawl space went on forever. Probably only 60 feet, but feeling like miles. Barbara's knees were bleeding from crawling across concrete, her shoulders screaming from the awkward position. But she kept pushing forward because stopping meant death. Ahead, she saw light, the emergency exit Raymond had mentioned. Lily reached it first, pushed through into the storm, then Lucas, then finally Barbara emerged onto the beach in torrential rain and wind that nearly knocked her over. "Run!" Barbara screamed over the storm, grabbing both twins' hands. They ran along the beach, away from the house, toward the rocky outcropping that marked the property boundary. If they could reach the road beyond, flag down a car, get help. A figure emerged from the storm ahead of them, male, armed, moving with professional confidence. He raised his weapon, and Raymond appeared from nowhere, tackling the attacker, both men going down in a violent struggle. "Keep running!" Raymond roared, even as he fought for his life. Barbara ran, Lily and Lucas struggling to keep up through sand and rain, all of them soaked and terrified and praying they'd survive the next 60 seconds. They reached the rocks, started climbing, and Barbara looked back to see Raymond still fighting. 3 more attackers converging on his position, and she knew, with horrible certainty, that he wasn't going to make it. "Thank you," she whispered, then focused on getting her children to safety. At the top of the rocks, Barbara found a narrow road, barely more than a gravel path. She pulled the twins into the tree line, hiding them in undergrowth while she tried to think. They were miles from anywhere. The storm made walking impossible with 3-year-olds. Her phone had no signal. The attackers were still searching, and Milton thought they were safe at headquarters, had no idea they were actually in immediate danger. "Mama," Lily whispered. "I'm scared." "I know, baby. Me too. But we're going to be okay. We just have to—" A vehicle approached on the road, a black SUV moving fast, headlights cutting through the storm. Barbara's heart sank. More attackers. But then she recognized the vehicle, recognized the man who jumped out, weapon drawn, scanning the area with tactical precision. Leo. "Barbara!" he shouted over the storm. "Where's Raymond?" "Fighting at the beach house. We need to go back. We need to get you out." Leo was already herding them toward the SUV. "Boss's orders. Your safety is priority 1. Raymond knows that." Barbara wanted to argue, wanted to go back for Raymond who'd sacrificed himself buying them time. But Leo was right. The twins came first. They piled into the SUV, Leo driving with the controlled aggression of someone with military training. Behind them, Barbara could see the beach house in the distance, lit by explosions, a war zone. "Where's Milton?" she asked. "On his way. He figured out the setup about 10 minutes ago, turned around, called in every favor from every allied organization. There's going to be 50 Crimson Rose soldiers descending on that beach house in the next 5 minutes." Leo's voice carried grim satisfaction. Vincent Calabrese picked the wrong family to target. Milton arrived at the beach house like the wrath of God. He'd been halfway to the city when Barbara's missed calls and Raymond's cut-off warning had triggered understanding. He'd reversed course immediately, called in reinforcements from 6 different territories, and made it clear that anyone who wanted to maintain good relations with the Crimson Rose would send help immediately. The response had been overwhelming. Even rival organizations who had no love for Milton understood the principle. Attacking children violated the fundamental code. Help stop this, and you earned favor. Ignore it, and you made yourself a target. 50 soldiers from 4 different families descended on the beach house in coordinated assault. Vincent's 20 attackers suddenly found themselves outnumbered, outgunned, and completely surrounded. Milton didn't order mercy. The battle was brutal, efficient, and absolutely one-sided. Vincent's professional soldiers found themselves facing an overwhelming force that didn't care about rules of engagement or measured response. They died quickly. Milton found Raymond on the beach, badly injured but alive, having taken down 3 attackers before finally being overwhelmed. He was bleeding from multiple wounds, barely conscious. "Boss!" Raymond gasped. "Barbara, the twins! They're safe. Leo got them out." Milton knelt beside his friend, his hands moving to apply pressure to the worst wounds. "Medic! I need a medic here now!" "Did we win?" Raymond asked, his voice fading. "We won. You held them long enough for help to arrive. You saved my children, Raymond." Milton's voice cracked. "You saved my family." "Good. That was the mission." Raymond's eyes closed. "Tell Barbara, I'm sorry, I couldn't do more." "You did everything. You did more than anyone had a right to ask." Milton looked up as the medic arrived, professional hands taking over the emergency treatment. Keep him alive. I don't care what it costs. Keep him alive. Milton left Raymond with the medics and entered the beach house. Now a war zone of bodies, spent ammunition, and structural damage that would take months to repair. He found Vincent Calabresi in what used to be the living room, wounded and trapped beneath fallen debris, but conscious and defiant. "Milton James," Vincent said with what remained of his bravado, "congratulations, you won this round." "This round? There are no more rounds, Vincent. You lose. Permanently." Milton pulled Vincent from the debris with less care than he'd show a piece of furniture. "Who helped you? Who in my organization gave you security codes, locations, inside information? Go to hell." Milton's response was immediate and brutal, a level of violence designed not to kill but to cause maximum pain. Vincent screamed. "Who helped you?" Milton repeated. I don't know his name. We only communicated through encrypted channels. He called himself the Bishop. That's all I know." "What did he look like?" "I never saw him. Only voice calls, encrypted emails. I swear." Vincent was sobbing now, any pretense of toughness gone. "Please, I'll tell you everything. Just stop." Milton did stop. Not out of mercy, but because he believed Vincent. The conspiracy had been designed with operational security that protected the insider's identity. But Milton had enough information now. The Bishop was a code name, but it gave him a starting point. Someone in his organization with access to high-level security, comfortable with encryption and covert communication, patient enough to run a months-long conspiracy. He pulled out his phone, called his most loyal lieutenant. "Dominic, I need deep background checks on everyone with clearance level 3 or higher. Full financial, communication records, everything. Someone in our organization has been betraying us for months. Find them." "On it, boss." Milton looked down at Vincent, broken, defeated, crying. "You violated the most fundamental rule we have. You targeted children. For that, there's only one punishment." Vincent's eyes widened. "Wait, I gave you information. I cooperated, and I appreciate that. It will make your death quick instead of slow." Milton's weapon rose. "Any last words? I was just following orders. Orders to murder 3-year-olds. Yeah, I heard." Milton pulled the trigger. 2 hours later, after the bodies had been cleared, the witnesses had been secured, and the crime scene had been scrubbed with professional efficiency, Milton finally made it to the secured location where Leo had taken Barbara and the twins. It was a nondescript apartment in a working-class neighborhood. The kind of place nobody would think to look for a mafia family. Milton knocked. 3 times. Pause. Twice more. The recognition code. Leo opened the door, looking exhausted but alert. "Boss, they're okay. Shaken, but okay." Milton entered to find Barbara on the couch, holding both twins against her. Lily and Lucas were asleep from exhaustion, but Barbara's eyes were red from crying. Her clothes still soaked from the storm, her expression a mixture of relief and residual terror. "Raymond?" she asked immediately. "Alive, critical but stable. He'll recover, but it's going to take months." Milton sat beside her, careful not to wake the twins. "He saved you, held off superior forces long enough for Leo to extract you. He's a hero. He told me to run, told me protecting the twins was my only job. His job was buying time." Barbara's voice broke. "I left him there, Milton. I ran while he fought." "You did exactly what he needed you to do. What I needed you to do." Milton gently touched her face. "You kept them alive. You got them to safety. You survived an impossible situation. That's not cowardice. That's exactly what a mother should do. Barbara leaned into him, and Milton wrapped his arms around her and the twins, holding his family close while outside the storm finally began to break. "It's not over, is it?" Barbara asked quietly. "Someone inside your organization helped Vincent. Until we find them, we'll find them. And when we do, they'll face the same justice Victor and Vincent did." Milton's voice was absolutely certain. "But Barbara, after tonight, after this siege, every organization in the city knows what happens when someone targets my family. The message is clear. The twins are protected by an alliance of families who might hate each other but agree on one principle. Children are off limits. So we're safe now? Safer. Not perfectly safe. That doesn't exist in my world. But safer than you've ever been." Milton kissed her forehead. "And tomorrow, we start rebuilding. New security protocols, new safe houses, new understanding that the twins aren't a secret or a weakness. They're my family, and I protect my family with everything I have." 3 months after the beach house siege, Barbara stood on the balcony of the rebuilt headquarters penthouse, watching Lily and Lucas play in the rooftop garden Raymond's team had constructed specifically for them. "They're resilient," Dr. Sarah Mitchell observed, joining Barbara at the railing. She'd become a regular presence, monitoring the twins for any psychological trauma from the multiple violent incidents they'd experienced. Kids process trauma differently than adults. As long as they feel safe and loved, they usually adapt. "Are they safe?" Barbara asked. "Really, truly safe. As safe as anyone can be in this world." Milton's declaration worked. Every major organization in the city understands that touching the twins means war with a coalition of families. That's deterrence on a scale most mobsters don't dare challenge. Sarah paused. "But safety is always relative. You know that." Barbara did know that. 3 months of living in Milton's world had taught her that complete safety was illusion. But relative safety, protection backed by overwhelming force and coalition consensus, was achievable. The penthouse door opened and Milton entered, looking less like a mafia boss and more like an exhausted father. He was carrying grocery bags. Apparently, he'd taken to doing normal errands occasionally, trying to maintain some connection to regular life. "I got the snacks you asked for," he told Barbara. "Also, ice cream. Because apparently, I'm incapable of shopping without buying ice cream. The twins don't need more ice cream." "The ice cream isn't for the twins." Milton smiled, a genuine expression that appeared more frequently now than it had 3 months ago. "It's for me. Stress eating is apparently how I cope with fatherhood." Lucas noticed Milton's arrival and came running. "Daddy! Daddy! Look what I built!" He dragged Milton toward an elaborate block tower that incorporated lessons from the many castle-building sessions they'd shared. Milton examined it with the same serious attention he'd give a strategic plan. "Excellent defensive design. The walls are properly angled for deflecting siege weapons." "It's a castle, Daddy, not a—" "What you said. Castles are siege weapons platforms. I'll explain when you're older." Barbara watched them, this feared mafia boss teaching his 3-year-old son about medieval siege warfare, while genuinely enjoying himself, and felt something she'd never expected. Happiness. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but real. "You're smiling," Milton observed, catching her expression. "That's become more common recently." "I'm adapting to this life, to you, to the reality that poverty didn't keep them safe and your world, terrifying as it is, actually can." Barbara moved closer. "I'm choosing to build this with you. Not because I have to, because I want to. Milton's expression shifted to something vulnerable. What does build this mean? Co-parenting, partnership, something more? I don't know yet. Ask me again in 6 months after we've survived whatever new crisis inevitably appears. Barbara smiled. But for now, we're family. Complicated, dangerous, definitely not traditional family, but family nonetheless. I'll take it. Milton pulled her close, not romantically, but with the comfortable affection of people who'd survived hell together and come out stronger. Thank you for giving me this chance, for letting me know my children, for trusting me enough to build something despite all the reasons you shouldn't. Thank you for becoming someone worth trusting. Later that evening, after the twins were in bed, Milton gathered his inner circle in the headquarters conference room. Raymond, recovered enough to be mobile, though still healing, sat at Milton's right hand. Leo had been promoted to lieutenant after his actions during the siege. Dominic Santoro represented the old guard who'd chosen loyalty over Victor's coup, and new faces, younger members who'd proven themselves during the crisis, filled the other seats. Gentlemen, Milton began, we've spent 3 months rebuilding after Victor's betrayal and Vincent's attack. The organization is stronger now than before the crisis. We've established unprecedented cooperation with rival families around the principle of protecting children. We've modernized our security protocols, and we've sent a message that the Crimson Rose is led by a man who will go to war to protect his family. Boss, about that, Dominic said carefully. The old guard, myself included, we've been discussing how the organization needs to evolve. Having children, being a father, it's changed you, made you more human, but also more dangerous because now you're not just fighting for power or territory. You're fighting for legacy. Is that a problem? Milton asked. No, it's an advantage. Soldiers fight harder for a leader who's protecting the family rather than just accumulating power. Allies are more willing to cooperate because they understand family motivation. Dominic smiled slightly. Turns out Victor was wrong. Family doesn't make you weak. It makes you legitimate, real, someone people want to follow. What about the bishop? Raymond asked, changing subject to the still unresolved mystery. Any progress on identifying Milton's inside betrayer? None, Milton admitted. Whoever he is, he's gone deep underground. No communications, no moves, no trace. Either he's fled the organization entirely, or he's smart enough to stay dormant until things calm down. We'll find him eventually, Leo said with young confidence. Betrayers always slip up. Maybe. But until then, we operate under enhanced security protocols. Milton looked around the table. The twins are part of this organization now, not in the violence, not in the criminal operations, but in the structure. They attend events, they're visible, they're known. That visibility is protection. Understand? Everyone nodded. Good. Then let's talk about the Calabrese situation. Isabella Romano wants a permanent truce. She's proposing territory boundaries, mutual non-aggression, and her personal guarantee that no Calabrese will ever target my family again. Thoughts? The discussion went on for 2 hours. Strategy, negotiation, the balance between peace and preparedness. Milton engaged with every perspective, no longer the autocratic boss who made unilateral decisions, but something more evolved. A leader who consulted, considered, and built consensus while maintaining final authority. After the meeting ended, and everyone had left, except Raymond, Milton asked, "Do you think I've gone soft? Become weak like Victor claimed?" "I think you've become human," Raymond replied. And humans are capable of things monsters can't achieve: loyalty, love, legacy, the ability to build something that lasts beyond your own life. He paused. Milton, you spent 20 years being feared. Now you're building something that can be loved. That's not weakness. That's evolution. 6 months later, Barbara stood in the headquarters penthouse, preparing for the twins' 4th birthday party. It was elaborate. Professional caterers, decorations that probably cost more than most children's entire birthday budget, guests that included both crime bosses and legitimate community leaders. The mixture would have been absurd anywhere else, but in Milton's world, it was the new normal. "This is insane," Barbara told Milton. "Normal kids don't have bodyguards at their birthday parties." "Our kids aren't normal. They're the most protected 4-year-olds in the city." Milton adjusted his tie. He'd dressed up for the occasion like this was a formal event, rather than a children's party. "But they're also happy, healthy, and surrounded by people who love them. That's what matters." The party was a success. Lily and Lucas had the time of their lives, running around with the few other children who'd been invited, all from families cleared by Raymond's security protocols, eating far too much cake and being absolutely spoiled by every adult present. Milton watched his children with an expression Barbara had come to recognize, wonder that this was his life now, gratitude that he'd been given this chance, fear that it might all disappear if he wasn't vigilant enough. "They're going to be okay," Barbara said, taking his hand. "You've built enough protection around them to withstand anything." "I hope so, but I won't stop being paranoid. Can't stop. Because the moment I let my guard down, then don't let your guard down. Be paranoid. Be overprotective. Just also remember to be present. To enjoy these moments instead of just protecting them." Barbara squeezed his hand. "They need both the protector and the father. I'm still figuring out how to be both. So am I. We'll figure it out together." As the party wound down and guests began leaving, Isabella Romano approached, one of the few adults who'd been invited despite being the head of a rival crime family. She'd brought elaborate gifts and had spent the afternoon treating Lily and Lucas with the affection of a grandmother. "Milton," she said, "thank you for inviting me. This was lovely. Thank you for coming, and for keeping your word about the truce. Vincent's betrayal taught me something important, that old hatreds aren't worth destroying the next generation over. Your children are innocents. They deserve to grow up without being targeted because of their father's profession." Isabella glanced at Barbara. "And you, Ms. Long, have my respect. What you've survived, how you've adapted, most women would have broken. You've thrived." "I haven't had much choice," Barbara said honestly. "We always have choices. You chose strength. That's admirable." Isabella turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Milton. The bishop, your inside betrayer. I've heard whispers. Nothing concrete, but suggestions that he might be someone very close to you. Someone you'd never suspect. Watch your inner circle carefully." After she left, Milton and Barbara exchanged concerned looks. "She could be stirring trouble," Barbara said. "Or she could be warning us about danger we haven't recognized." Milton looked at his assembled lieutenants, all of whom had been present today, all of whom seemed loyal beyond question. "But who? Everyone here has proven themselves." "Maybe that's the point," Barbara said quietly. "The bishop is probably someone who's proven themselves so thoroughly you'd never suspect them. That's how deep cover betrayers work, by being beyond suspicion." It was a disturbing thought, but one they'd have to investigate later. For now, they focused on the twins, Lily and Lucas, 4 years old, exhausted from party excitement, being carried to bed by their father, who sang them the family lullaby passed down through generations. And Barbara, watching from the doorway, thought about the impossible journey that had brought them here. From a midnight delivery that exposed secrets to coordinated attacks that nearly killed them all. From poverty and hiding to wealth and visibility. From strangers connected only by biology to family forged through survival and choice. It wasn't the life she'd imagined when she'd discovered she was pregnant in Prague. But it was their life now. Complicated, dangerous, definitely not traditional, but theirs. 2 years later, the private estate sat on 10 acres of secured property outside the city, far enough for privacy, close enough that Milton could still manage the organization, protected enough that even paranoid parents could occasionally relax. Barbara stood in the garden, watching 6-year-old Lily and Lucas play with the elaborate treehouse Raymond's team had built. They were laughing, healthy, adjusted children who knew their father was important, but didn't fully understand what important meant in his world, which was exactly as it should be. "Mama," Lucas called, "watch me go down the slide." "I'm watching." Milton appeared beside her, holding 2 glasses of wine. "They're happy." "They are. You did that." Barbara took a glass. "You built a world where they can be children while still being protected." We did that. You're the one who reminds me they need normalcy, structure, boundaries. Without you, I'd just be the indulgent father who gives them everything and teaches them nothing. You've come a long way from the awkward man who didn't know how to read picture books. Barbara smiled. "You're a good father, Milton. The twins adore you." The feeling is mutual. Milton watched Lily, teaching Lucas some complicated game involving pirates and treasure. 2 years ago, I didn't know they existed. Now I can't imagine life without them. Any progress on identifying the bishop? None. Whoever he is, he's gone completely dark. No communications, no moves, no trace. Either he's dead, or he's waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Milton's voice carried frustration. But I won't let paranoia ruin what we've built. We've taken every precaution, lived our lives, survived. That's what matters. Do you think he'll ever resurface? Probably. Betrayers usually can't resist eventually. But when he does, we'll be ready. They stood together, watching their children play in the security of a world built through violence but maintained through love. Not a perfect world, not even a safe world by most standards, but theirs. And they'd fight to protect it with everything they had. You just experienced the complete saga of Barbara and Milton, from a midnight delivery that exposed explosive secrets to siege warfare that tested every limit. From poverty and hiding to wealth and danger. From strangers connected by biology to family forged through survival and choice. This was a story about bloodlines that revealed truth, about maternal sacrifice and paternal transformation, about coup attempts and unlikely alliances, and ultimately about building family from impossible circumstances. What did you think? Would you have hidden your children like Barbara, or revealed them immediately? At what point did you start rooting for Milton, despite his violence? Which plot twist shocked you most? Victor's betrayal, the beach house siege, or the revelation that someone is still hiding as the bishop? Drop your thoughts in the comments, theories about who the bishop might be, and whether you think Barbara and Milton's relationship will ever become fully romantic. And smash that subscribe button so you don't miss our next comprehensive thriller about secrets, survival, and families that shouldn't exist but refuse to break. Remember, some bloodlines can't stay hidden, some secrets detonate lives, and sometimes The most dangerous thing a mafia boss can have isn't enemies. It's children worth dying to protect.